The year was 2147 when the sky above Earth changed forever. 2,000 warships appeared near Mars, blocking out the stars like a dark curtain spreading across space. Each ship was massive, covered in weapons that glowed with strange energy. The fleet belonged to the Valoran Dominion, a civilization that had conquered over 400 species across the galaxy. They had never lost a war. They did not expect to lose this one. On Earth, alarms rang in every military base across the planet. Satellites sent images of the alien fleet to screens around the world. People stood in the streets, looking up at the night sky with fear in their eyes. No one had ever seen anything like this before. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. And it was terrifying. General Jake Mercer stood in the command center of Earth's United Defense Force. He was a man in his late 50s with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. Around him, officers rushed between computers and shouted information to each other. Mercer did not shout. He simply watched the screens showing the alien armada and let out a slow breath. How long until they reach Earth? He asked. At their current speed, 72 hours, sir, replied a young officer. Mercer nodded. 72 hours. 3 days to prepare for something humanity had never faced before. It was not enough time, but it would have to do. The first message from the aliens came 6 hours later. Every screen on Earth flickered, and a face appeared that was not human. Supreme Commander Kethrol of the Valoran Dominion had pale blue skin and 4 eyes that moved independently. His mouth was filled with small, sharp teeth, and when he spoke, his voice was cold and without emotion. People of Earth, Kethrol said, you have been chosen for integration into the Valoran Dominion. You will surrender your planet, your resources, and your population for service to our empire. You have 72 hours to comply. Resistance is not recommended. Every species that has resisted us has been destroyed. Those who surrendered were allowed to serve. The choice is yours. The message ended, and the screens returned to normal. For a moment, the world was silent. Then chaos erupted. Leaders called emergency meetings. Citizens demanded answers. Some cried. Some prayed. Some prepared to fight. In the command center, General Mercer turned to his staff. Get me Captain Lisa Grant and Ambassador Sam Holloway. We have work to do. Captain Lisa Grant arrived within the hour. She was the lead pilot of Earth's Orbital Defense Squadron, a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a reputation for quick thinking. She had flown more missions than anyone in the fleet and had never lost a pilot under her command. When she walked into the room, she was already studying the tactical displays. Ambassador Holloway came next. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a talent for finding common ground between enemies. He had ended 3 wars on Earth through diplomacy alone. Now he faced his greatest challenge. What do we know about them? Holloway asked. Very little, Mercer admitted. They call themselves the Valoran Dominion. They have conquered over 400 species. They expect us to surrender. And if we do not? Grant asked. Then they will try to take Earth by force. Grant smiled, though there was no humor in it. They can try. While Earth's leaders planned their defense, something strange was happening on the Valoran command ship. Kethrol had ordered his analysts to study human broadcasts to learn about their new targets. What they found confused them. On one screen, they watched footage of human soldiers in combat. The violence was impressive. Humans fought with ferocity and determination that surprised the Valoran observers. They used weapons and tactics that showed creativity and aggression. The analysts nodded with approval. This species knew how to fight, but then the footage changed. The same soldiers who had been fighting moments ago were now helping injured civilians. They carried children to safety. They shared their food with strangers, They held the hands of dying enemies and spoke soft words of comfort. "What is this?" one analyst asked. "Are these different humans?" "No," another replied, checking the data. "These are the same soldiers, the same units. They fight and then they help." More footage played. Human soldiers rebuilding homes they had destroyed in battle. Military doctors treating wounded enemies with the same care as their own people. Warriors playing games with children in refugee camps, laughing and smiling like they had never known war. The analysts brought their findings to Catherall. He watched the footage with his 4 eyes narrowed in confusion. "They are soft," he declared. "Emotional. This is weakness." "Supreme Commander," one analyst said carefully. "They also have a history of terrible wars. They have killed millions of their own kind in conflicts over resources, beliefs, and power. They are capable of great destruction." "Then why do they show mercy?" Catherall demanded that no one had an answer. Catherall waved his hand dismissively. "It does not matter. Emotional species are always easy to break. When we threaten what they love, they will surrender to protect it. This invasion will be simple." Back on Earth, General Mercer stood before the assembled forces of the United Defense. Soldiers from every nation watched him through cameras and screens. He looked at their faces and saw fear, but he also saw something else. He saw determination. He saw courage. He saw the same fire that had carried humanity through every challenge in its history. "They have come here expecting easy prey," Mercer said, his voice calm and steady. "They have watched our broadcasts and seen us help our enemies. They have seen us show mercy. They think this makes us weak. They are wrong." He paused and let his words sink in. "We fight because we must. We show mercy because we choose to. That is not weakness. That is strength. The Valorans have conquered 400 species. They have never met anything like us. They came expecting sheep." General Mercer looked directly into the camera, and his eyes were hard as stone. "Let's show them the sheepdogs." Across the planet, soldiers cheered. Ships powered up their engines. Weapons were loaded and checked. Earth was preparing for war, and the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The hours passed slowly as Earth prepared for battle and the Valoran fleet moved closer. In both places, people worked without rest, each side trying to understand the other before the fighting began. On Earth, Lieutenant Danny Cole sat in a small room filled with computers and listening equipment. He was a young man with tired eyes and headphones pressed against his ears. His job was to intercept Valoran communications and translate their language. It was difficult work, but Danny was good at it. After 40 hours of listening, he had learned something important. He rushed to General Mercer's office with his findings. "Sir, I have been monitoring their communications," Danny said. "They are confused by us." Mercer looked up from his desk. "Confused how?" "They do not understand why we fight and show mercy at the same time. In their history, species either surrender completely or fight without any moral limits. They have never encountered anyone who protects non-combatants during battle. They think it is a trick." Mercer leaned back in his chair. "They think our compassion is a strategy?" "Yes, sir." "They cannot believe it is genuine." This information was given to Dr. Megan Price, the military psychologist assigned to analyze Valoran behavior. She was a woman with gray-streaked hair and glasses that she constantly pushed up her nose. After reading Danny's reports, she called a meeting with the command staff. "I believe I understand them now," she said, pointing to images of Valoran society on the screen. "The Valorans are conquerors. Their entire civilization is built on dominance. In their view, the strong take from the weak. Mercy is seen as failure. Compassion is seen as a defect. So they think we are defective?" Captain Grant asked. "They think we are confused," Dr. Price replied. They see our military power and respect it. But they also see us helping others, including enemies, and they cannot make sense of it. In their experience, no species does both. Ambassador Holloway spoke up. This could be useful. If they do not understand us, they cannot predict us. But it also makes them dangerous, Mercer warned. Enemies who do not understand you often make terrible mistakes. On the Valoran command ship, tactician Zorvith was having similar thoughts. He was older than most Valoran officers, with scars across his face from battles long ago. Unlike Kethral, Zorvith did not dismiss things he did not understand. He studied them. He had spent 2 days reviewing everything the Valorans knew about humans. The more he learned, the more worried he became. Supreme Commander, Zorvith said, entering Kethral's chamber, I must share my concerns. Kethral was eating his meal and did not look up. Speak. The humans are unlike any species we have conquered. They are what our scientists call pack-bonded predators. They form emotional attachments not just to their own kind, but to other species, to objects, even to ideas. They will fight to the death for things that have no practical value. This is weakness, Kethral said. I am not sure it is. Zorvith pulled up images on a nearby screen. Look at this. A human soldier carrying a wounded enemy to safety during a battle. Here, human doctors working without sleep to save aliens from a plague. And here, humans crying at the death of a creature that was not even intelligent. Kethral finally looked at the images. Crying for an animal? Yes, they form bonds with everything. And when those bonds are threatened, they become extremely dangerous. There are records of single humans fighting against impossible odds to protect things they love. They do not stop. They do not surrender. They fight until they win or they die. Then we will make them die, Kethral said simply. You do not understand, Zorvith pressed. We have conquered species that fought hard. We have conquered species that surrendered easily. But we have never conquered a species that does both at the same time. The humans will fight us with everything they have, and they will still offer us mercy. I do not know how to defeat an enemy like that. Kethral stood up, towering over the older tactician. You are afraid, Zorvith. You have grown old and soft. These humans are nothing special. We will crush them like we crushed all the others. Zorvith lowered his head. As you command, Supreme Commander. But as he left the chamber, Zorvith could not shake his fear. Something about the humans felt different. Something felt wrong. On Earth, the evacuation of cities had begun. Millions of people moved to underground shelters that had been built in secret over the past 50 years. Soldiers guided civilians through the tunnels, carrying children and helping the elderly. It was organized and calm, just as they had practiced. Captain Grant watched the evacuation from her fighter on the launch pad. Her squadron was ready, 20 pilots who trusted her with their lives. She had given them a speech earlier, but now she just sat in silence, thinking about what was coming. Her radio crackled. Captain, we have a contact. Single Valoran scout ship entering the atmosphere. Grant's hands moved to her controls. Is it armed? Yes, but it is not attacking. It appears to be observing. General Mercer's voice came over the command channel. Disable it. Do not destroy it. I want that crew alive. Grant smiled. This was exactly the kind of order she had expected from Mercer. Understood, sir. The battle was short. Grant's squadron surrounded the scout ship and fired precision shots at its engines and weapons. The alien vessel lost power and began to fall. Grant guided it down with careful shots, slowing its descent until it crashed in an empty field without exploding. Ground teams moved in immediately. They cut open the ship and found 4 Valoran crew members inside, injured but alive. Human medics treated their wounds right there in the field. The aliens were given water and food. Their broken bones were set. Their cuts were bandaged. When the Valoran captain woke up in a human medical tent, he looked around with confusion in all four of his eyes. A human nurse was checking his bandages. A human soldier stood nearby, weapon lowered, watching calmly. "Why?" the Valoran captain asked. "Why are you helping us?" "We came to enslave you." The soldier shrugged. "You are hurt. We help hurt people. That is what we do. But we are your enemies. You are still people." The Valoran captain stared at the human for a long moment. He had conquered 12 worlds in his career. He had seen species beg for mercy and species fight to the last. But he had never seen this. He had never seen an enemy treat him with kindness for no reason. "I do not understand you," he whispered. The soldier smiled softly. "That is okay. Most people do not understand us at first. But you will learn." News of the captured scout ship spread through the Valoran fleet. Kethril dismissed it as a minor loss. But others noticed something strange. The prisoners had been treated well. They had been given medical care and food. They had not been tortured or killed. On a dozen Valoran ships, officers began to wonder. What kind of species was this? What kind of enemy showed mercy before the war had even truly begun? The galaxy was about to find out. The 72 hours ended at midnight. Earth waited in darkness, watching the sky with held breath. Then the stars began to move. The Valoran fleet descended on Earth like a storm of metal and fire. 2,000 warships spread across the planet, launching fighters and drop pods toward every major city. Energy weapons lit up the night, turning darkness into terrible day dawn. But Earth was ready. Defense platforms hidden in orbit came online. Missiles launched from silos across every continent. Fighter squadrons rose from hidden bases, their engines screaming as they climbed toward the enemy. The sky became a battlefield, filled with explosions and burning metal. Captain Lisa Grant led her squadron into the heart of the enemy formation. Her voice was calm on the radio as she called out targets and directed her pilots. Around her, Valoran fighters swarmed like angry insects, their weapons filling space with deadly light. "Stay tight," Grant ordered. "Watch each other's backs. No one flies alone." The Valorans had never seen tactics like this. In their experience, fighters were disposable weapons, thrown at enemies without concern for survival. But the humans flew differently. They protected each other. When one ship took damage, others moved to shield it. Pilots risked their own lives to save their wingmates. A young pilot named Kelly's ship was hit and began spinning toward Earth. Grant immediately broke formation and flew after her. "Grant, what are you doing?" a voice shouted on the radio. "You will be killed." "I am not leaving her behind," Grant replied. She caught up to Kelly's damaged fighter and used her own ship to steady it. Together, they limped toward a landing zone while other pilots formed a protective circle around them. They both survived. Watching from his command ship, Tactician Zorvith shook his head slowly. They risk everything to save one pilot. This is madness. But it was not madness. It was something the Valorans had never understood. It was love. On the ground, the fighting was even more intense. Valoran troops landed in cities across the world, expecting easy victory. They found something very different. Sergeant Ben Torres stood in the ruins of Chicago, leading a small group of soldiers against waves of Valoran attackers. He was a big man with gentle eyes that turned hard in combat. His team held a hospital filled with civilians who could not be moved. "They keep coming," Private Chris Dunn said, reloading his weapon with shaking hands. He was young, barely 20 years old, and this was his first real battle. Fear was written across his face. "Then we keep fighting," Torres replied. "Those people in there are counting on us." The Valarans attacked again and again. Torres and his team held their ground, firing from behind broken walls and burned vehicles. When ammunition ran low, they fought with whatever they could find. When soldiers fell, others took their places. Private Dunn saw a group of children running across the street, separated from the evacuation. Valoran troops were moving toward them. Without thinking, he ran from cover and scooped up two of the smallest children, carrying them towards safety. A Valoran weapon hit him in the back. He fell, shielding the children with his body. Nurse Amy Walsh ran from the hospital entrance, ignoring the explosions around her. She grabbed Dunn and the children, dragging all of them back to cover. Her hands were steady, even as energy blasts scorched the ground beside her. "You are insane," Dunn gasped, blood spreading across his uniform. "Probably," Walsh agreed, already working on his wound. "But those kids are safe. That is what matters." Dunn looked at the children huddled nearby. They were crying but unharmed. Despite the pain, he smiled. The Valorans could not understand what they were seeing. Human soldiers died protecting civilians. Medics ran into active combat zones to save the wounded. When a Valoran soldier was injured and left behind by his own forces, human troops captured him, treated his wounds, and gave him water. One Valoran prisoner asked his human captors, "Why do you do this?" "We are killing your people." A human sergeant looked at him with tired eyes. "Because if we stop being human, then there is nothing left worth fighting for." In orbit, the battle raged without pause. Admiral Kate Shepard had kept a secret fleet hidden behind the moon, waiting for this moment. When the Valorans committed their main forces to the attack, she struck from behind. "All ships, engage," Shepard ordered. "Protect Earth at all costs." The hidden fleet tore into the Valoran formation. The aliens had not expected reinforcements. Their careful battle plans fell apart as human ships attacked from an unexpected direction. But even in the chaos of combat, the humans followed rules the Valorans could not comprehend. When Valoran ships were destroyed, human vessels paused to scan for escape pods. Rescue ships collected alien survivors from the wreckage. Enemy wounded were pulled from burning holes and given medical care. A dying human pilot, his ship breaking apart around him, used his last moments to guide a Valoran escape pod away from a collision course. He saved alien lives with his final breath. Valoran medic Shelara watched the battle from a damaged cruiser. She had served the Dominion for 30 years and thought she understood war. But this was something new. She saw a human medical ship fly into a crossfire zone to rescue Valoran survivors. She watched human doctors work beside her own medics, treating wounds without asking which side the patient fought for. She heard a human nurse singing softly to a dying Valoran soldier, holding his hand as he passed away. Tears fell from Shelara's eyes, though she did not know why. She had never cried before. On the surface, the fighting finally paused as both sides pulled back to regroup. The cities were damaged but not destroyed. The people were shaken but not broken. Earth had survived the first assault. General Mercer stood in his command center, looking at reports of casualties and damage. The numbers were painful, but they could have been worse. They had held. A message came from the Valoran fleet. Supreme Commander Kethral appeared on the screen, his 4 eyes blazing with fury. "You fight well," he admitted. "But this changes nothing. I will destroy your cities. I will burn your world. Surrender now, or watch everything you love turn to ash." Mercer looked at the alien commander without fear. "You have made a mistake, Kethral. You attacked our home. You threatened our families. You have seen how we fight when we are being careful. You do not want to see how we fight when we are angry." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Harm our civilians, and we will not stop until every last one of your ships is dust. That is not a threat. That is a promise." The screen went dark. Mercer turned to his staff. Prepare for the next wave. And someone get me a cup of coffee. It is going to be a long night. Outside, the stars still burned with the light of battle. But somewhere in the darkness, Earth soldiers stood ready, protecting what they loved, refusing to give up hope. The war was just beginning. Supreme Commander Kethrel made his choice at dawn. He ignored General Mercer's warning and ordered the bombardment of Earth's cities. Heavy weapons on Valoran battleships charged with terrible energy and fired. The sky turned white. Bombs fell on Tokyo, London, New York, and a dozen other cities. Buildings collapsed. Streets melted. Thousands of lives ended in seconds. Smoke rose from the wounded planet like prayers that no one could hear. On Earth, people screamed and cried and held each other. Soldiers stood frozen, watching their homes burn. For a moment, it seemed like hope itself had died. Then General Mercer spoke. "All forces, this is your commander." His voice was steady, but there was something new in it. Something cold and hard as iron. They've made their choice. Now we make ours. Attack with everything we have. No retreat. No surrender. Full Earth. The hidden fleet behind the moon had been waiting for Admiral Kate Shepard's order. Now it came. "All ships, weapons free," Shepard commanded. "Show them what happens when they hurt our home." 100 warships emerged from hiding and slammed into the Valoran formation. They fought without the careful restraint of before. Valoran cruisers exploded under concentrated fire. Battleships cracked open like eggs. The alien fleet, so confident in their victory, suddenly found themselves fighting for survival. But even in their fury, the humans did not become monsters. They destroyed warships but avoided medical vessels. They attacked fighters but protected escape pods. When Valoran crews surrendered, they were captured, not killed. This made no sense to the Valorans. They had bombed human cities. They had killed innocent people. Why were the humans showing any mercy at all? On the damaged Valoran cruiser, medic Shellara worked without rest to save the wounded. Alien and human casualties filled her medical bay. She had no more supplies from her own ship, so she used human medical equipment captured in the fighting. 2 human medics worked beside her. They had been prisoners, but when Shellara asked for help, they agreed without hesitation. Now they moved through the rows of wounded, treating Valoran soldiers with the same skill and care they would give their own people. "I do not understand," Shellara said during a brief pause. "We are your enemies. We bombed your cities. Why do you help us?" One of the human medics, a young woman named Rose, looked at her with tired but kind eyes. "Because you are hurt. Because you need help. That is enough reason, but we killed your people." "Your commanders killed our people," Rose corrected gently. "You are just a medic like me. You did not drop those bombs. And even if you had, you are hurt now. Hate does not heal wounds. Only care does." Shellara stared at the human for a long moment. In 30 years of service, she had never heard anyone speak this way. The Dominion taught that mercy was weakness, that enemies deserved only death. But these humans, these strange, soft creatures, treated everyone with kindness that it broke something inside her. Walls she had built over a lifetime began to crack. She grabbed a recording device and began to film. She captured footage of humans treating Valoran wounded. She recorded Rose singing to a dying Valoran soldier, the same way she had sung to her human patients. She documented everything she saw, every act of compassion in the middle of war. Then she transmitted the footage to every ship in the Valoran fleet, on the command ship. Tactician Zorvith watched the recording with growing horror. Not horror at the humans, but horror at what his own people had done. They had bombed cities filled with civilians. They had killed innocent people. And in return, the humans were saving Valoran lives. He went to Kethrel's chamber and found the Supreme. Commander preparing something terrible. On the screens around him was the image of a massive weapon, a planet killer that could turn Earth into burning rock. "You cannot do this," Zorvith said. "I can and I will," Cathrol replied. "These humans must be destroyed. They are too dangerous to let live." Dangerous? They are showing our wounded mercy. They are saving our soldiers even as we try to destroy them. This is not an enemy to be feared. This is an enemy to be respected. Cathrol turned to face the old tactician. "You have gone soft, Zorvith. You see their kindness and think it is strength. It is weakness. They cannot do what is necessary to win. And what is necessary? Destroying an entire world? Killing billions of people?" Zorvith's voice grew louder. "We have done terrible things in the name of the Dominion. I have done terrible things. But this is too far. This is evil. Evil is a word used by the weak," Cathrol sneered. "The strong do what they must." "No." Zorvith drew his weapon. "The strong do what is right." Behind him, other officers stepped forward. They had watched Shalara's footage. They had seen the humans show mercy to their people. They could not stand by while Cathrol committed genocide. "You are all traitors," Cathrol hissed. "Perhaps," Zorvith admitted. "But we are done following a monster." Guards loyal to Zorvith moved forward and seized the Supreme Commander. Cathrol fought and screamed, but there were too many of them. In minutes, it was over. The most powerful military leader in the Valoran Dominion was a prisoner on his own ship. Zorvith took the command chair. His hands trembled as he opened a channel to all Valoran forces. "This is Tactician Zorvith. Supreme Commander Cathrol has been removed from command for crimes against the Dominion and against innocent people. All ships are ordered to cease fire immediately. I am requesting a ceasefire with the human forces. This war is over." Across the fleet, ships stopped firing. Fighters returned to their carriers. The guns fell silent. On Earth, General Mercer received the transmission with disbelief. He had expected the battle to last days, maybe weeks. Instead, it was ending after hours. Ambassador Holloway stepped forward. "Sir, we should respond. They are offering peace." Mercer nodded slowly. "Open a channel." Zorvith's face appeared on the screen. He looked old and tired, like a man who had carried heavy weight for too long. "General Mercer," he said, "I am Tactician Zorvith. I have assumed command of the Valoran fleet. I wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict." "Why?" Mercer asked. "You were winning. You have more ships, more weapons. Why stop now?" Zorvith was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with emotion. "Because we saw what you did. We bombed your cities, killed your people, and you still saved our wounded. You still showed mercy to our soldiers. In all my years of war, I have never seen anything like it. I do not understand you, General, but I know that I do not want to fight you anymore." Mercer stared at the alien commander. Behind him, his staff watched in stunned silence. "We accept your ceasefire," Mercer finally said. "Let us talk about peace." For the first time in hours, no weapons fired in Earth's sky. The war had paused, and something new had begun. Something that would change the galaxy forever. The peace talks took place on a space station between Earth and Mars. Ambassador Sam Holloway represented humanity. Tactician Zorvith spoke for what remained of the Valoran command. They sat across from each other at a simple metal table, two species that had been trying to kill each other just days before. "I must ask," Holloway began, "what happens to your former Supreme Commander?" "Cathrol will face trial for his actions," Zorvith replied. "The bombardment of your cities was a crime, even by our laws. He will answer for what he has done." Holloway nodded. "And what do you want from us?" Zorvith was quiet for a long moment. His four eyes looked tired, carrying the weight of centuries of conquest and the sudden realization that it had all been wrong. "Nothing," he finally said. "We came to take everything from you, and instead, you showed us something we have never seen before. You fought like warriors and loved like family. You protected your people and showed mercy to ours. We have conquered 400 species, Ambassador. Not one of them has ever treated us with kindness. Perhaps none of them had the chance. Perhaps." Zorvith lowered his head. "Or perhaps they were simply not like you. Your people are different, Ambassador. You are the first species that made us question what we are." The agreement they reached was simple. The Valoran fleet would withdraw from Earth's solar system. Prisoners would be returned. A path toward diplomatic relations would be opened. No tribute, no submission, no conquest. Just peace. When the news spread across the galaxy, no one believed it at first. The Valoran Dominion had never been defeated. They had never retreated. They had certainly never apologized. But footage from the battle told a story that words alone could not express. Aliens across hundreds of worlds watch humans fight with incredible courage, then turn around and save the lives of fallen enemies. They saw medics working side by side, human and Valoran, treating wounded without discrimination. They watched a human pilot sacrifice himself to protect an alien. Escape pod. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. On conquered worlds, whispers began. If the humans could resist the Dominion, maybe others could too. If one species could fight without losing its soul, maybe the chains of oppression could finally be broken. Within months, rebellion sparked on 12 planets. Species that had surrendered generations ago found new courage. They looked at what Earth had done and found hope. Medic Shellar became an unlikely ambassador. She traveled from world to world, showing her footage of the battle and telling stories of what she had witnessed. She spoke of Rose, the human medic who had worked beside her saving Valoran lives. She described General Mercer, who had shown strength and mercy in equal measure. She talked about a species that fought to protect, not to conquer. "I have served the Dominion my entire life," she told audiences across the galaxy. "I believed what we did was right. The strong ruled the weak. That was the natural order. But the humans showed me another way. They showed me that true strength is not in how many you can conquer, but in how many you can protect, even your enemies." On Earth, the rebuilding began. The cities that had been bombed would take years to repair. The people who had been lost would never be forgotten. But there was something else too. Something harder to see, but impossible to miss. Pride, humanity, had faced the greatest threat in its history and had not broken. They had fought and bled and died, and through it all, they had remained human. They had shown the galaxy that compassion was not weakness, that mercy was not surrender, that you could be strong and kind at the same time. General Mercer visited the hospitals, where wounded from both sides were recovering. He walked through the halls, stopping at each bed to speak with the patients. Human soldiers shook his hand and thanked him for his leadership. Valoran prisoners looked at him with something like awe. One young Valoran, barely more than a child in his species, asked Mercer a question that had troubled him since his capture. "Why did you save us?" "We came to enslave your people. We killed your families. Why did you not let us die?" Mercer sat down beside the young alien's bed. "Because that is not who we are. We fight when we must. We kill when we have no choice. But we never stop being human. We never let hate turn us into something we would be ashamed of. But is that not weakness?" "Some think so." Mercer smiled gently. "But I think it is the strongest thing we do. Anyone can destroy. It takes real strength to heal. It takes courage to show kindness to those who hurt you. That is what makes us human." The young Valoran thought about this for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. "I think I want to be human too." 1 year after the battle, the first human diplomatic ship arrived at the galactic capital. It was a small vessel carrying Ambassador Holloway and a small staff. Compared to the massive warships that usually visited this place, it looked almost fragile, but nothing about what it represented was fragile. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to watch the humans arrive. Some were curious, some were afraid, some were hopeful. All of them wanted to see these strange creatures who had done the impossible. A Valoran elder, one of the oldest and most respected voices in the galaxy, addressed the assembly as the human delegation entered. "We have gathered today to welcome a new species to our community. 1 year ago, the Valoran Dominion sent a fleet to conquer Earth. We expected an easy victory. We found something very different." The elder paused, looking at the humans with all four of his ancient eyes. "We came to Earth expecting to find prey. We found something the galaxy has never seen before. Warriors with gentle hearts. Soldiers who wept for fallen enemies. A species that could have destroyed us in our defeat, but instead chose to heal us." Holloway stood quietly, listening. Around him, hundreds of aliens watched in complete silence. The humans taught us that strength is not just the power to destroy. It is the power to protect. It is the courage to show mercy. It is the wisdom to know that today's enemy can be tomorrow's friend. The elder lowered his head in a gesture of deep respect. The galaxy was speechless after first contact with Earth's army. And for the first time in 10,000 years, so were we. "Welcome, humans. We have much to learn from you." The assembly hall erupted in sounds of greeting from 100 different species. Holloway looked at the gathered aliens and smiled. Behind him, through the great windows of the station, Earth glowed blue and green against the darkness of space. It was just a small world in a vast galaxy, home to a young species that had almost been destroyed, but it had survived. And in surviving, it had changed everything. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again.